Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 3rd January 2016. The first article, All is Not Well in the Army. This is by Happy Man Jacob. In this article, we will be looking at three aspects. What is merit-based versus seniority-based promotions? And then, what are the issues with the personal management in Army? What is the way out? Now, this debate is age-old. Now, many people argue in favor of merit, but that is seniority is also a kind of a merit, and at the same time, it is easy to determine. Now, if we want to promote the people on the basis of merit, it shall not send any wrong signals, and it has to be clear, objective. In the present case, Mr. General Rawat was promoted as the army chief, superseding two senior most officers. What the government has cited as a reason is experience with insurgency operations. Here there are two issues. Army chief's job is not of a tactician, but it is of a strategist. So it means there is no correlation between the nature of the job he has to perform and the experience that has been claimed to judge the merit. And the second thing is, if the merit is not been clearly defined and the criteria are not stated, and these appointments becomes the whims and fancies of the politicians of the day, and it may lead to the politicization of the army, which is not in the great interest of this country. And added to that, if you see the internal management of the army, across various divisions, the infantry is getting, our infantry chiefs are getting promoted as the army chiefs. Their promotion avenues are better than the others. And the second thing is, the army chiefs are willing to promote the people from their own regiment. It has happened with everyone. So in these circumstances, a clear-cut personal policy is necessary to keep up the morale of the army. An increasing number of the court cases with regard to the personal management of the army is not good for the security of the nation. Then in the case of the army chief, what the article suggests is, there has to be a bipartisan approach. It means that the civilian control on the army has to be maintained, but the politicization has to be avoided. In this, the criteria has to be clearly stated, and a committee shall be consisting of opposition leader, prime minister, defense minister, etc. A committee can be constituted to decide on the next army chief. That can be the way forward. The price of defiance. Now this BCCI and the Supreme Court attempt to clean the cricket administration in India is a long drawn battle between the BCCI and Supreme Court. The Supreme Court appointed the Lodha panel, and its recommendations are not being implemented by BCCI, and BCCI more showed an obstructionist attitude. So in this context, finally Supreme Court, after repeated warnings, has to remove the BCCI president and the secretary. And it can be more seen as the BCCI mismanagement than anything else. New Year's Eve tragedy in Turkey. Now the Turkey is at the crossroads according to me. Now, Mr. Erdogan, he made a strategic mistake with regard to his Syria policy. As like many Westerners, he also believed that Mr. Assad is going to be ousted from the president, removed from the president, and he has actively supported the rebels. And he has gone to an extreme that he has kept his borders favorable for ISIS recruitment. Many of the people who have joined the ISIS have entered through Turkey. And the second thing is, the oil, which was the major revenue for the Islamic State, also has moved through Turkey. It was able to sell its oil and gain the revenue through Turkey markets. And then there is Kurds unrest, which is getting deepened. And also, Mr. Erdogan's tougher stand on the Kurds is making the things worse. There was a ceasefire agreement existing between Kurdistan Workers' Party, which unilaterally being violated by Mr. Erdogan, which is hardening the stand of the Kurds. And there is a demand for Kurds autonomy, and the Syrian Kurds are active in fight against the ISIS, and they are also getting the aerial support from the United States of America. So these all, the Syrian civil war is also getting spilled over into Turkey now. So this makes the Turkey at the crossroads and the security of the state is measurable. The killing of Russian ambassador and the present New Year Eve massacre, all this shows that the Turkey-Syria policy has measurably failed, and it is the time it has to revisit its policy towards the Kurds so that it can bring in safety to its own people. Now, the rediscovery of urban India. Now, with regard to this article, if urban local bodies or urban development has to be happened, what we shall do? So, let's take Januram, Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Rural Mission. It was there before. Now, the NDA government it brought in Smart Cities Mission, Amrut Mission. Now, what are the changes between Januram? So, Januram used it to approve the projects. It means that the priority of the project and a detailed project report has to be submitted by the state and the local governments, local body. Then it will approve and provide for the funds under this mission. Now, what under the smart cities the government did is an action plan for the entire city has to be provided with a clear priorities for one or the other. Water, sanitation, transport, like that clear priorities has to be made. A detailed action plan has to be provided. So in the case of Januram, it was a project approval. Here it is a detailed action plan for the entire city to improvise the urban infrastructure. So the second thing is, the project based approvals are being given away for the area based outcomes. That's what we can state it as. And second, the political priorities have taken the back seat. It's a clear observation. Now, under the Januram, allocations to the states, it has more determined by the politics of the day than preferences of the central government rather than the criteria or the need for development. Now, under the Smart Cities Mission, Amrutam, so the government has laid a clear criteria and the states has to evaluate themselves on this criteria and submit it to the government and it will approve for the same. And then, now there has to be a matching grant that has to be collected by the local bodies. It means some 100 crores, if they are getting 100 crores of the project cost, also need to be bought by the local governments. So because of this, there is a sense of ownership on the local governments. Previously, due to lack of this sense of ownership, there was a last quarter rush or March rush with regard to the expenditure. So the governments used to make certain reports and send it to the union. So they used to, approve them and expenditure used to be made under Januram. The situation has changed. To bring in the competitive spirit, an index is been brought in for comparison between the cities on cleanliness, governance, etc. And added to that, under Smart Cities Mission, governance reforms are also ingrained. With regard to single window approvals for the construction, all these are being practiced. So, in a nutshell, it has tried to bring in a participatory urban governance rather than top to bottom approach. That is what Mr. Venkaiah Naidu, the Minister for Urban Development, talks about. Let us see it from the other dimension. The Smart Cities Mission, it did not give due importance to the local bodies is the first criticism. Because it is creating the islands of development rather than improving the entire infrastructure. And second thing is, under Smart Cities Mission, the government is creating special purpose vehicle rather than providing for the authority to the local bodies directly. And third criticism is, the Smart Cities Mission, will be administered by a special officer rather than democratically elected rulers of the local government. So in that way, it is undermining the position rather than strengthening the capacities of the urban local bodies. That is the criticism of Smart Cities Mission. And then, now let us see when women eat last. Let's see this article. Remember that the nutrition of a child is dependent on the mother's nutrition. If mother is malnourished, it gets spread during the pregnancy because during the pregnancy, a child depends upon the nutrition served from the mother and then on her breastfeeding. And then the nutrition, if for a girl child, is being skewed in favor of the boy child. So mother is the last person who eats in the family. So because of this, she has been left with only with a little amount of the food and she compromises. So, because this situation has created malnourished women, and this malnourishment is the reason for the stunted children. How we shall fight with this? So, we shall not see this as an alone phenomenon. It has to be seen as part of wider concept of gender discrimination in India. So, if we have to educate the people on different dimensions of gender discrimination, it shall include the household consumption and distribution of food. That's what this article talks about. So, there is one more article. Now, the next article is the Supreme Court judgment with regard to the religion as a basis for corrupt practice. Now, according to 123, Section 123 of Representation of People's Act, a candidate or his agents approved by him shall not use religion, caste, or region, or language or race to promote the hatred between the people and to gain the victory or win in the election. So, in this context, the Supreme Court said this all comes under the definition of the corruption practice, and the candidate can be disqualified. So, it's a landmark judgment. So, in this context, we have to see Hindutva judgment of Justice Verma. So, it means no political party can use religion to gain votes. In the Hindutva judgment, the Justice Verma has stated that Hindutva is a way of life rather than a religion. So, this judgment did not touch on the Hindutva judgment given by Justice Verma. Even today, Hindutva as a way of life, which was given by Justice Verma in his judgment, stands valid. So, you need to differentiate between the two. Now, coming to the other aspects. So, with regard to it will be a disservice to the little man, the Supreme Court, it is again Section 123 of Subclause 3 of the Representation of People's Act. And then I have given you the questions how to think on these concepts. Follow these questions and then take the notes or see the notes at the end. And again, mirror practice is very much important for the interview preparation. Development of opinions is very much important. Now, coming to the mains, at the end I have given you a question. So, try to think and write on that particular question. And then I will post these notes on the lawx.in/civilsprep. You can write the answer and upload it over there. So, I will make a small video at the end of the day and it will be posted at Civils Prep channel. Thank you very much.